Hello, I'm George Boomer. Welcome to a training session on using StatWizards Forecast Wizard. Join me for the next few minutes while we explore how our new wizard uses Fader-Hardie probability models to solve a wide range of business problems. During this tutorial, we will discuss briefly this new class of models and why they're valuable to businesses, share with you the idea behind the Forecast Wizard, then show you how to use the Forecast Wizard. Let's begin with an overview. Fader-Hardie models start by assuming that each of us has a separate buying process. It may be as simple as the probability to purchase or vastly more complex. Your buying process, say your probability to purchase, may differ from mine and from that of each potential customer. We further assume that buying processes vary across the population in a way that can be measured using a flexible distribution. Peter Fader at the Wharton School and Bruce Hardie at the London School of Economics discovered a way to model individual processes and the mixing distribution simultaneously. The result? Accurate forecasts at both the individual and aggregate levels that require minimal data to generate, applied to a wide range of business issues, which we will explore next, and reside entirely in Excel. Let's look at the business topics the Forecast Wizard covers. Professors Fader and Hardie developed a broad portfolio of applications, including analyzing sales, understanding how customers fall into market segments, calculating customer lifetime value. Not all customers are equally valuable to the firm. Which ones are more valuable than others? Projecting customer retention and attrition. Inevitably, firms lose customers over time. At what rate will that happen? What path will retention take? Forecasting product demand. Given only a weekly sales history for a new product, what will sales be over the next few weeks? Predicting online behavior. What factors appear to influence website visits? Improving marketing campaigns. How do we size a direct mail campaign to maximize return on investment? Can we shorten billboard evaluation periods and still predict their effectiveness? The next few slides cover business issues in slightly more depth. On the left, you will see an example of a starting data set. On the right, you will see a sample of the results. The application under Analyzing Sales involves identifying market segments based on common purchase rates. The theory here is that classifying customers into groups based on purchase patterns can help direct marketing activities that can better satisfy their needs. Starting data consists of a frequency distribution of purchase rates and ends with the identification of three market segments. First, those who buy little or nothing, then moderate-level purchasers, and finally high-level purchasers. The firm now has the means to create programs to boost purchase rates for the first two segments and consider loyalty programs to keep the third segment from straying. Some customers are more important than others, and this approach tells you by how much. It starts with purchase patterns for contracts or subscriptions, then creates a tool that can estimate, based on the recency and frequency of a customer's transactions, the probability the customer is still active, the number of transactions the customer will make during a given forecast period, the remaining transactions over the customer's lifetime, and what is formally called the discounted expected residual transactions for the customer. In other words, the value of the customer to the firm. Many companies having contractual relationships with their customers or long intervals between recurring purchases benefit from projections of customer retention. Starting with a history for a given set of customers, this application projects customer retention and the retention rate over a forecast horizon. Many sales forecasting techniques exist. They vary depending upon the forecast period, the level of aggregation, and the amount of data available. In those cases where the focus is on a new product and the only data available are historical sales, this class of models performs quite well. Starting with data as granular as individual transactions, The technique projects sales over a given forecast horizon. As the web becomes an increasingly important channel, understanding the dynamics of website traffic has grown accordingly. This application starts with a sample of visits along with captured demographics and goes on to identify the characteristics that distinguish visitors from non-visitors. In this example, the key variable turns out to be age. Measuring the return on investment for marketing activities has bedeviled marketers for a long time, but measurement techniques continue to improve. This application starts with a test mailing, in this case to a number of customer segments, and data for unit margin and marketing costs. It selects the segments that will produce the best rate of return from the full mailing. The tutorial for this application compares the model's recommendations to those from a manager and those using the company's standard policy, and finds the model's rate of return beats them significantly. In their tutorials, Peter Fader and Bruce Hardie use Excel to estimate their models. So why use the Forecast Wizard? Excel is a great product. It remains the lingua franca of the business world, and the program's capabilities, especially with Solver, have evolved to the point where it can take on extremely complex tasks. Virtually all client datasets arrive either as Excel workbooks or text files that Excel can read. Clearly, Excel remains the preferred platform for developing business software. Other design principles seem obvious as well, but surprisingly few software designers consider them. In designing our software, we wanted to let the user start with data organized in the same format as it arrived. We wanted to help new users every step of the way, but not slow down experienced users. Microsoft's Wizard format provided a good way to accomplish this. At no point did we want to present users with empty fields or unmade choices. Rather, we include best practices as defaults at each decision point. We wanted to make processing as fast as possible under the assumption that our users' time is valuable and scarce. We wanted tight integration with other StatWizards modules, as well as with Microsoft Office. Finally, we wanted to set the price so that payback was immediate. Now let's take a moment to show you how the wizard works. Let's assume that you've installed the wizard and you've loaded a data file such as the one you see here. To run the wizard, either click on the button labeled Construct Forecasting Model or press Ctrl-Shift-F. The first page provides you with an overview of what the wizard does. If you run the wizard with the data workbook open, you can press the Next button to continue. On the other hand, if you run it with a blank worksheet, the wizard helps you decide what to do next. Along the way, a number of help options exist. For standard help on using the wizard, click the button with the question mark. Where an applicable paper on the current topic exists, the button with a mortarboard activates. Clicking this button will open the paper in Adobe's Acrobat Reader. You must have the reader installed for this to work. Where a PowerPoint lecture on the subject at hand exists, the button with the projection screen icon activates. Clicking this button will take you to an Acrobat version of a PowerPoint lecture. Let's assume that you're working with an existing data set. If that's the case, the wizard guesses at the range containing your data. You'll find that the wizard makes a number of reasonable guesses along the way based upon the information that it has to this point. Most of the time, the guesses are correct, but the wizard always gives you a chance to override them. That's the case here and often in this tutorial, so we can click the Next button to continue. In this step, the wizard asks for the type of data you have. As usual, the wizard guesses, and once again it guesses right, but you could override it if you wanted to do so. For more information about what the wizard means by data types, click the icon with the screen. For now, let's click the Next button to continue. Your model may contain external variables such as demographic information. If so, you can enter the range containing that data here. In this example, we don't have any external data, so we can move on. Step 5 contains a number of fields. The first frame asks whether the relationship with the customer is contractual or non-contractual. We briefly discussed this distinction earlier. The second frame, which can't be edited, informs you that your data needs to be reorganized. The third frame describes your data's frequency. Once again, the wizard has guessed correctly, so you can leave this as is. The last frame asks for the starting date for the estimation. By default, the wizard chooses the first day of the current month, so inevitably you will want to change this. For our purposes, though, we will continue. As we saw from the last step, our data needs to be reorganized. This is where you do that by clicking the Reorganize Data button. The wizard lets you know that it's finished. You can now click the Next button to proceed. The most critical step is this one, Step 7, where you select the technique to use. Sometimes the wizard knows enough at this point to make the selection for you, but other times it does not. If you see blank fields, as you do here, use the drop-down arrows to focus on what you want to do. As soon as the alternatives narrow to 1, the chosen technique appears, as you see here, along with 2 indicators in the upper right-hand corner. The first tells you how the technique compares with alternatives. The second, whether the approach has been implemented in this version of the Forecast Wizard. We can now click the Next button to proceed. All techniques come with a set of assumptions. In this step, you review them to see whether you are willing to accept them. If so, click the Next button. We're almost ready to set up the model. All the wizard needs is the number of time periods to be estimated. By default, the wizard splits the sample in half, but you can choose any time period you want. To use the whole sample, check the box labeled Use All Values. When you're done, click the Setup Model button. We can now unleash Solver to estimate the parameters in our model. Click the Estimate Model button to proceed. When estimation completes, as you see here, the wizard gives you an opportunity to tweak Solver in an effort to improve the solution, but you don't have to do that. Let's click the Next button to move on. Now that we have a model, this step prepares for the forecast. If you split your sample, the wizard assumes you want to use the remaining sample as the forecast period, but you can change any of the entries that you see here, and the others will adjust. When you're ready, click the Produce Forecast button. Upon completion, which may include skip steps, the wizard presents the final screen. Click Finish to close the wizard and inspect the results. In this example, we can scroll to see tables of forecasts, charts of actual versus fit, and in many cases, a number of other charts and graphs. In this brief introduction, we've shown how the Forecast Wizard makes best guesses for settings, reducing time and effort. It allows you to override most guesses, uses what it learns about your data and objectives to help select the proper technique, automatically sets up and estimates models. Solver setups are saved, so you can return to them later if you wish. The wizard creates presentation-ready output that can be cut and pasted into other Microsoft Office documents. The program executes rapidly, saving considerable time over building models in Excel by hand. And finally, all versions, including free ones, serve as tools for learning Hardie models. I hope you've enjoyed this introduction. To find out more about the Forecast Wizard and our other products, or to obtain a free demonstration version, visit us at www.statwizards.com. Thank you.